Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Spindle Feeds. Pull up a chair and let's get into it. Now, the shaft I'm diligently sanding on here is my Kearney&Trecker Model 3CH horizontal milling machine. The last we saw of this mill was in a new machine day video. I'll post a link in the description if you'd like to check that one out. Now, in that video I discussed some parts that were missing from this unit, and today we are going to replace most of them. The first item is this side control lever. The only replacement part I could source is this handle from what I assume was a larger mill, as the bore of this handle is larger than the OD of the shaft. So to make this fit, I think a bushing will suffice. The material I have to work with is a bar of C360 brass, though a smaller diameter piece of stock would have been more ideal. Shaving this down to 5/8 OD seems a bit wasteful, however it's only a section about an inch long. let's get a whole board in this thing. I don't mean to toot my own horn, but I've got to say the tailstock DRO is proving to be pretty handy. Occasionally it gets in the way, but in those instances it can be moved or removed easily. I'm not saying it's the end-all be-all solution, but for most boring application it works pretty good. Alright, it's time to give this a test fit. I'm wanting to achieve a close press fit, but it seems a little too tight. I think a touch up with a strip of emery cloth will get us where we need to be though. I'd say that's close enough. So let's dispatch the parting blade and liberate this bushing from the stock. Alright, so it looks like we're off on a chip pan fishing expedition, and there we go. Has a smooth finish on that cut side, and chamfered on the other end for her play. Okay, here at the press, I was hoping to slide this in from the opposite side, but without a flat profile against the press block, I thought it might be a bit fussy going in. This has worked out well, though the fit did produce small rings of brass shavings. But no worries, it peels right off. Okay, so now we have the part set up in the mill vise. The handle locks into the shaft with a number 2 taper pin, so the plan is to drill both holes with the smaller... oh no. Something bad just happened. Okay, so I was just adjusting the spindle speed. I felt something inside the head just snap. Now, there's no longer any tension in the variable speed adjustment knob. I removed the cover to investigate and found the chain had separated from the tilt plate. The tilt plate is what sets the upper and lower spindle RPM by limiting the travel of the pulley discs. And in order to get this reattached, the motor and the pulley cover must be removed. And there's no way to access the pin connector at the top of the tilt plate by any outside access. Now I've had this machine for about 20 years and had zero issues with it and have never even had this thing opened up. Who knows how many times I've adjusted the spindle speed. Having said that, while digging around in the head, you're not going to believe what I found. Whoever worked on this thing last, instead of using a master link to connect the chain to the tilt pin, what I found instead appears to be a construction staple. And today I guess it decided to give up the ghost. Okay, well, keep calm and carry on, as they say. Looks like we just got a preview of the next video. Where were we? Oh yeah, so let's drill both holes to the smaller diameter of the taper pin. Then we'll go back and drill out the larger end to size. Okay, now I believe the best practice would be to run through this with the taper dreamer. There we go. Okay, let's get this over to the K&T. Alright, so we've got all of our parts here. We've got the carriage lock handle. This is the Bijor pump we'll be scavenging the handle off of. Of course, our side control handle and a willing taper pin. Now, this rear control lever is going to be its own project and a separate video. It's going to take a good amount of work to make this functional, and there's a product I'd like to try out in that process. Alright, let's give this a test fit and see what we got to work with. Yeah, it looks like there's paint in the pinhole, so let's clear that out. I think we're ready to give this thing a love tap with a hammer. And voila! Good to go. Alright, let's parse out this pump handle. It goes on easily with the aid of a wire brush to clean the paint off the threads. We'll tighten up this backing nut, and that should do it. Our final part is the table lock handle. It takes a minute to get these splines shouldered. I wonder if there's a way to adjust this locking screw. It seems like there should be more resistance against the table. I'm going to look into that, but for now we'll tighten up this screw and we're all done. Now before we go, let's test out this side control lever. Seems to work flawlessly. Okay guys, well that's all I have for you this time. Thanks for tagging along. If you like to keep up with the machine shop drama or would like to see more of what we do around here, do a guy a solid and hit that subscribe button and maybe even give a like. Until next time, thanks for watching.